All right, we're started here. What is today? January 29th, 2013, with Brad Scott, President and CEO of Cetan Corp in Chesapeake. And Brad, thanks for the opportunity to chat with you about your business. Can you tell us a little bit about Cetan Corp?
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Cetan Corp, I founded Cetan Corp in June 2007. To boil it down, we are an IT solutions company. We come at things a little different approach, rather than someone calling up and saying that they have a specific IT need, if you will. We come at it from a business approach, because the reality is that IT is really there to help generate revenue for corporations now, and a little bit different from, say, 20 years ago. It's more of a call center. So what we look at is what's the business problem customers are trying to solve, that we match solutions to meet those problems.
Well, that's great. How long have you been in business? You said 2007?
Yeah, we founded in June 2007. Mm-hmm. So we've been in business 5.5 years now, a little over 5.5 years.
And you started the company, and this is what I was getting to. You started working out of your home, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the primary example that you hear, single owner home office, or SOHO, had initially worked out of an office, was the only employee for a couple of years, and started hiring after that. Once we had developed a customer base and streamlined some processes, and we're prepared for growth.
Mm-hmm. Well, is your house must be getting crowded now, or did you move into some offices, and when did that happen?
Funny enough, we moved into office about 18 months ago. Office space for a couple reasons. Number one, there still is that perception in the marketplace that businesses need to have a brick and mortar, that they physically need a storefront, if you will, even though that they're not in retail. Mm-hmm. So there was, number one, that perception, but really the biggest need, or the biggest driver, because we were actually doing approximately $7 million in revenue when I was still working out of my home. The biggest driver in that, Dan, was to aid in growth here locally, and in Hampton Roads. So to give folks an office to work out of, and kind of have our core operations, if you will. Most of our employees have been remote outside of Hampton Roads. Until about 18 months ago, I was the only employee here locally. Okay. Across 9 states is where our employees are, and same thing. They work out of their homes, or out of airplanes and hotel rooms, and the client offices.
I understand that. And so primarily your business is software reselling. Is that a fair characteristic, or would you take it a little bit deeper?
Sure. So our business, and if you look at our business just at a high level, we're an IT solutions company, and what that means is our customers may engage us maybe on a particular product line, or a particular technical need that they may have, and what we do is we try to see how they're aligning their IT to meet the business needs. What we found is that's really where it brings the biggest bang for its buck, if you will. But more specifically, sometimes what the customer may be asking more for may be slightly different than what they need. And I think all of us, just as consumers, we've all done that, to say, I want to buy this, and this is what I want. You get it, and then you realize, wow, you actually needed a different option or a different solution in its entirety. Mm-hmm. So that's where we've been able to aid our customers into to having projects on time, on budget, and quite candidly to meet their needs.
Very good. Are there some primary vendors that you work with out there, like Salesforce.com, PeopleSoft, and BMC?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So primary vendors are BMC Software, Microsoft, Salesforce.com as well.
Very good. Now, Brad, I know that you're a Native American, and you've gotten some recognition over the past couple of years in the Inc. 500. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So first, on the Native American, I'm actually registered Chickasaw, Choctaw actually, but registered Chickasaw, and I'm very proud of my heritage in that regard. And funny enough, the name Cetan actually comes from a Native American term for hog, and really is a cornerstone of our business, meaning the hog is really known for speed, dedication, perseverance and keen sense of vision, if you will. These are really all the things we try to bring to our client relationships. If you look at those things, so it brings in the heritage that I'm very proud of into the business. But also, those are also all the things that we bring to our client relationships, which is a nice tie-in.
Yeah, that's fascinating. A quick aside, I know that you're a Hollywood movie star of sorts. You were in a movie, I think, made about your grandmother. Can you tell us a bit about that? Very interesting.
Sure, absolutely. As I said, very proud of history. My grandmother, Pearl Carter Scott, was actually a tribal legislator for the Chickasaw Nation, and prior to that, in her earlier days in life, she was one of the first, or the youngest solo pilot in the United States. So my great grandfather lied about her age, so she'd get a pilot's license a little bit younger. But the Chickasaw Nation actually did a movie on her after there was an autobiography written about her. There was a movie that they did called Pearl, about her career, if you will, as a young aviatrix.
Yeah, and I watched that, and if I recall, she was friends with Wiley Post, or Wiley Post taught her how to fly, or
Sure. Wiley Post was friends with her father. And for a lot of folks outside the aviation community may not be familiar with him, but he was responsible for many things, one of those being discovering the Gulf Stream, which has helped transform air travel as we know it today in that regard. So, but got her interested in flying, and she did things like barnstorming and business charters back in Oklahoma, in the late 20s.
That's fascinating. Well, that has to make you feel good. Now, she passed away just
in 2005,
fairly recently. Yeah,
exactly.
And how old was she?
She was 83.
Okay, yeah,
so
close enough, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to Cetan Corp. You've told us a little bit about the organization. What markets do you serve?
Sure. In addition to being Native American, I'm also a veteran of the United States Army. So we do have certain certifications as a Native American-owned business, as well as veteran-owned small business. And with the certifications, a lot of people in the community, as well as customers, believe or just automatically assume that we're 100% federal government and government contracting, those types of things. While we do federal government as well, state, local, and education, the bulk of our business today is in the commercial space, a large enterprise space. So our customers include, namesake you may know as Food Lion and Estee Lauder, and the list goes on from there. So.
That's great. And you talked about some of the awards. We'll list those in the article. So how did you start your business? You started in June 2007. You worked out of your house, but what gave you the idea, and what motivated you to start up Cetan Corp?
I had after leaving the Army, I worked for different size organizations, and one of the things that was fantastic experience, I wouldn't trade any of that at all. And for all those wonderful experiences, you also get to see different aspects of every business, good and bad, if you will, or things that can maybe be improved on. One of the things that I noticed working for a company, through an IT company through the .com days, and then the fallout after that was, and then kind of a migration away from focusing on customers, but focusing more on Wall Street. And I think that all of us see this in the world today, where you may run into a problem and decisions are made based on policy, but not based on the situation or follow-on business, which can be very frustrating when you're on the other end of the phone. And understanding that policies and procedures absolutely need to be in place. It was one of the biggest things that I saw. Likewise, I also wanted to create an environment that would enable me, as well as those that were involved with Cetan Corp, to be able to increase their to basically fulfill their dreams, if you will, or fulfill their desires, both from a personal as well as a professional perspective, which is very key. I think it's okay that a lot of folks go into business as entrepreneurs and everyone's afraid to say that I did it because I wanted to make some money, and that's okay. We all have we all have bills to pay. We all have those things, and I just felt that I could make a greater impact for the collective as a whole by having Cetan Corp and really focusing on some additional core values of having that positive impact on our customers, our employees, and our community.
That's great. So you had the idea, you had the vision. How did you do it? Did you bootstrap it? SBA loan, bank loan, friends, family, venture capital? How'd you do it?
Sure. So part of what it was, I looked at many different avenues from a capital perspective of getting SBA loans and going through that process, which is very valuable. I looked at traditional bank loans. By 2007, when I started a business, the bank loans were drying up. The markets in that regard. Friends and family had thought about that avenue as well, but didn't want to get in a situation of a Thanksgiving dinner. Can you pass mashed potatoes in the balance sheet, please? Because I'd like to review how the business is doing. So I wanted to stay away from those, and I bootstrapped the business. I worked for an organization, and the timing was there. And what I mean by bootstrapping is that I had obviously calculated this and planned for some time, but told my wife Mickey that looking at starting Cetan Corp and this is moving forward, and laid it out to her and said, hey, I'm taking $5,000 out of the bank and I'm starting a company, and off we went. And ever since then, have been able to bootstrap it, and then times of need, working with bank and developing business credit, have relied on one of our business partners, Town Bank, to help.
Town Bank Chesapeake branch, right?
Correct, exactly, to help whenever we needed some assistance and guidance in that regard.
And you're a member of Chesapeake Technology Business Consortium with myself and several other tech groups in the city of Chesapeake. Why did you join CTBC? What attracted you to it?
Sure. So a few reasons. We moved here from the greater North Virginia area, if you will, out near Winchester, Virginia, near where I grew up. I moved down here, and for a long time I looked at moving back to that area. From a perspective, we decided to settle here. Even after starting Cetan Corp, had decided to settle here in Chesapeake, just giving the things that the area offers, as well as the great folks. So with that, I wanted to link up with other IT companies, which is a given in the areas. We share similar challenges, but the primary reason was that some of the other factors that CTBC does in regards to social contract, and that gets back to the positive impact of the community. Being able to help other folks and a group of IT companies working together to say, doing a mobile app camp, to help our high school youth either become interested or not, help them make their own the appropriate decisions in technology. Likewise, with the new internship program that has begun, is helping developing that local workforce was very key to my personal mission, but as well as just the mission overall of all the Cetan Corp employees.
That's great. So you're actually putting a shoulder behind the efforts that you believe in,
Correct.
And have believed in for several years. I know you're a member of Civic Leadership this year too.
Correct.
Hi Michelle, my name is Angela and I'm with the group practice of therapist called INVO. We provide services to school and early intervention programs nationwide. I'm calling today because we have a great opportunity.
All right, back at it. Okay, technical difficulties, but we're back in the studio, this multi-million-dollar operation. Okay, anyway, where we left off was you're a member of the Civic Leadership class this year, class of 2013.
Correct.
What drew you to that?
Again, it gets back to that positive impact on the community, but as well as just getting plugged into the local community. I think here in Hampton Roads that there's so many things to offer. There's so many different industries, and the reality is that all of us, we put the blinders on and we focus on our industry, our local community, and we forget about the next neighborhood over or the next industry and how they may be impacted. I found Civic Leadership to just be a wealth of knowledge and to help educating me on the area that I've lived in for almost 14, 15 years now, and learning things that I never realized. Likewise, understanding the challenges that other businesses face. And again, that gets back to as we continue to expand, from our enterprise space, we're dealing with medium enterprises as well, understanding their business challenges here in the local community, which has been invaluable, and hopefully have been able to share some of the experiences that we've had at Cetan Corp.
Outstanding. So we've got some other issues that have been percolating around the region. Economic gardening is a current topic, and the definition is essentially for businesses to help, whether it's small, medium-sized business, even large business, to help some of the startups and small businesses in the region. What are your thoughts about economic gardening, and how can we get that program going, in your opinion?
Well, economic gardening is key to the success of our economy. We can't rely on folks in Washington D.C. To set the path. I think really, regardless of political affiliation, that we as entrepreneurs, as business owners, and the folks that work for these companies, we need to take it upon ourselves. No one else is going to do it. We have to do it ourselves, and part of that is helping each other. And I'm not saying that you're going to go help a direct competitor, per se, but at the same time we need to help each other. And with that, as we help each other and we help develop business, and we do it, if we start locally, then we can grow those things. Likewise, here in our region, we're very heavily dependent, I think, just as a region, on the military and the government as a whole. So really, for the economy perspective, we need to look at diversification across different industries, and we also need to realize that small business is the backbone. It's what's driving the economy. And I had folks that guided me, that pointed me in the appropriate directions. And I think it's our duty as entrepreneurs, regardless if you're a $100 a year business or you're a $100 billion a year business, it's your responsibility to help guide each other.
That's great. Let's drill down on that particular comment. Where have you gone for that type of guidance, mentorship, ideas, etc.?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in looking at different businesses, just over the course of my career, but especially in the past 5.5 years, when I took that first plunge, when, I started Cetan Corp and did those things, and wondered where, the next day would take me. A couple things. Number one is I look for peers that could help, and maybe someone that's been there or done that. I try to align myself. When people made the offer of call me, I did that, but I was respectful of their time, to learn from them. Most recently that in the past few years, we're a member of an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO, and it's a part of just an ecosystem that we need to do as entrepreneurs. Is find folks that you can do experience sharing with, that they're going to understand the challenges, that you face, or things that, there's no script for writing a business. You hear stories about folks that have been in business and they didn't realize that they needed a business license until years later, or, they've been in business and that there's certain HR challenges that they deal with. So it doesn't matter if, business problems are the same. We all think that they're different, but they're really not, in that regard. And there are the same principles that need to be applied, but really finding that ecosystem, such as an EO and Entrepreneurs Organization.
Yeah, that sounds like a great operation. I look forward to meeting more people in that group. So we've talked about this concept of buying local in the past, and what that premise is of course Hampton Roads. Can we support the businesses within Hampton Roads by trying to purchase goods or services from those organizations? What are your thoughts on buying local?
The bulk of our business that we do is actually outside of Hampton Roads. Until recently, we've actually started doing business here locally, and very recently, meaning that the companies are buying goods and services from Cetan Corp. I think it's very valuable for us to do that because it depends on the industry. But it is very, very key. I look at it from a different perspective of that we haven't called in the past on local companies. Actually, but at the same time, I think as local companies, we need to be aware that we still need to be competitive. And I think that's all these the buy local campaigns, all those types of things, that they're very good initiatives. I fully believe in them. We have a mandate internally to use local companies for our procurement purposes whenever possible, but it must make feasible sense to solve our business problems. So specifically, what I mean by that is we're not going to procure something for $1,000 when maybe it could cost $100. Somewhere else, in the United States, and I think that's very key. I think a lot of those programs they forget about those things, because it does come down to to solving the problem, if you will.
Yeah, no free pass. Let's talk about workforce development for a bit. In some of our CTBC meetings, workforce development has been identified as one of the key challenges for many of the companies, tech companies, at least in Chesapeake. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, I mentioned it before, diversification of the region away from the reliance on 100% on military and government, and I'm not saying that we admit those lines of business. I'm not saying that at all, but we need to be diversified, because if we go through things as we are now, sequestration and different budget cuts, that businesses can still survive. And as we talked about earlier, having that positive impact on our employees, we owe it to those families. We owe it to them to be diversified in a business to where we can take a slight downturn, because we're, as we can go to different areas. With that though, with workforce development, a lot of if you go to different areas, say Northern Virginia as an example, or Atlanta, for technology companies, there is more of a talent pool in those areas. In that regard, we need to develop that here locally for a couple of reasons. Number one, to keep younger successful people in the area, so that they're not moving to other metropolitan areas for work. But at the same time, it's self-sustainability, with that. So in order to do those things, there's several things. As businesses, we need to mentor, our younger workforce, as well as provide them the guidance and the skills that they need to increase themselves. And quite candidly, it may not direct a business, or may not benefit a business directly, meaning that if I mentor a student from TCC as an example, they may not come work for Cetan Corp directly. However, they will hopefully benefit somewhat another business here in the community.
Absolutely. So you mentioned TCC, a member of our educational community in the region. How would you view the product that's coming out of the college and universities? Do you think that that the curriculum is correct? Is there an opportunity to enhance that with some real world guidance from the technology community?
Sure. I think, looking at this, education is very, very, very important. But my view on education and degrees and certifications, they give you the key to open the door. The problem is, once you have that door open, you need to be able to do something with it. So it goes much beyond the classroom and those types of things. And this is really where an understanding that we all need to pay our bills, and I've been there. I was at that point, so I'm not speaking from a point of that having walked in those shoes. But we need to take the time to, and I think the folks that in the community, TCC and educational institutions, they need to take the time to invest in themselves. So, and to gain that experience, because that investment, no different than if you invest in the stock market versus putting money in a low-bearing, checking account. That's an investment that's going to take time, but will pay dividends and much higher down the road, and from both of financial as well as personal and professional satisfaction. So it's very key. So my point would be to that is look for areas that they can intern for free, or maybe go help out in a small business. Say if they want to be a web developer, what about another small business in the area that they maybe not can't afford, say, a web development company to help them with a website. This is a good opportunity for these students to get real world experience,
Very good.
and really not look for the paycheck.
Yeah.
Because that experience is what we look for when we hire folks. Especially on more the junior folks. Those are the things that we look for. We want to look for people that have gone above and beyond. Because you have your degree, it's fantastic. It does help. At the same time, you need that experience, or at least have tried to obtain that experience.
Back to the internship program. I think we call it the tech residency program for CTBC and TCC rather, that we're rotating co-op students through a handful of technology companies in Chesapeake to do perhaps a month at a time in companies, and move on to the next one and get experience in 3 or 4 companies over the course of a semester, and that'll increase their marketability, and it's good for the student, it's good for the companies. It could end up being a hire somewhere down the road, but it's good for everybody around the table. So you've had significant growth over the past few years. Tell us about how you manage the growth curve.
So a couple things, and to get to your growth point, it started out with $5,000, in a checking account in June 2007 and 2012. We closed with revenues of excess of $11 million through 2012. Very significant growth. It's led to numerous awards for the corporation, Inc. 500 at 5,000 list, ranked number 119 of fastest growing companies in the United States. It's made us very proud as a company. And really what it comes back to is investing wisely and investing appropriately, and really looking at the folks, the people in the organization. And you hear that often, every CEO, every large company, their marketing folks tell them to say that. But the reality is that you got to look beyond that. You really need to look for the person that's really going to carry the corporate mission forward. They're going to solve their customers' business problems. In our case, having that positive impact on our customers. They're going to do those things. They're going to go above and beyond, and that's really what we look for, and that's enabled our growth, in that regard.
So lessons learned along that way. I mean, what would you tell the new business startup that's occurring?
Traditional business schools really teach you about creating business plans, and early on, I thought that I needed to hire a business consultant to help me with those types of things, and I think the biggest thing is you need to move forward. A true entrepreneur, you need to do your appropriate market research, but I don't mean spend $100,000 of your own cash doing market research to see if something's valuable or not. Sometimes you just need to stick your toe in the water, to see if it's warm enough or not, in that regard. So don't overanalyze, paralysis or analysis, but don't forget to analyze. So there's definitely a fine line that you see. Likewise, you're going to need to take risk, and I think that's a key component that if you're risk adverse, you know, work for the larger organizations where you can still continue to add tremendous value, but you're going to need to take risk, and those are the risks that you need to decide. You know, what risk are you as the entrepreneur willing to take? As an example, if you have a home and you don't want to mortgage and lose everything to where you and your family are living out of a cardboard box, that may be the risk you're willing to take. I would assume that most people don't want to do that, so it needs to be acceptable risk in that regard. And I think that's very, very key when you look at those things. Likewise, looking back, you know, it's always the things that after the fact that I wish I would have invested a little bit earlier in certain, you know, things of the business. You know, maybe bringing on a qualified operations person, you know, to help out earlier on than I had. You know, bringing on, you know, some of the quality talent that we needed to, you know, from day one, as well as on the flip side, kind of advice or lessons learned. We've always invested in our IT infrastructure and our processes as we were the big companies, and that's helped tremendously because as we've grown, we've had this system in place to grow with us.
Very good. We're almost wrapped up. What advice do you, and I think you spoke to some of this earlier, recommendations to job seekers?
Sure. I don't know if I'm going to give advice. I think I could do experience sharing, so I think that's the biggest thing. I'll leave advice for your neighbor that knows everything and can tell you.
You've met him, I see.
that your neighbor or your relative that knows everything but hasn't done anything, and I think the experience sharing comes from, you know, the way that I entered, you know, the IT business was, I was in the military. I'd met someone that I was looking to transition out of the military for some mentoring, and I was given a list of 15 things that needed to go pursue. I did that in 3 months, and I came back and did it 100%, just not to get the checklist done, but to learn each one of those components. I did it, and I came back, and I think that's, if you say you're going to do something, deliver on it. Right? Take that, you know, and those were 15 areas of improvement, of opportunity that I needed to do. Some of those were certifications, some of that was experience. Was able to do that and come back. Likewise, you know, when looking for jobs or really careers is what we look for folks at Cetan Corp. You have to be honest and take an honest skills assessment of yourself from both a professional standpoint, meaning, you know, do you know XYZ technology, but also just a cultural standpoint. You know, are you the person that you need to leave every day at 5 o'clock? You know, are you're not willing to put in the extra hours? And, you know, or are you willing to stay to get the job, you know, done, to meet the customer satisfaction? You're willing to stay if you don't know, to educate yourself, you know, to do those things. And really, it doesn't make anyone right or wrong, or any organization right or wrong in either of those cultures, but there just needs to be that fit. And don't lie. You know, that's the biggest thing, you know, because there's a right fit for everyone there. You know, just because someone is an A player at Cetan Corp, they may be a B player, you know, in a different organization.
Indeed.
Again, doesn't make that other organization better or worse than Cetan Corp, or that person better or worse. It just has to be a right fit. So I think, you know, put the ego aside, be honest with yourself, because this will be more rewarding, you know, to you professionally.
Absolutely. Well, Brad, that's every bit of 30 minutes. Appreciate your time. Any closing statements for this interview? I think you've done a great job.
Thank you, Dan.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care.